Hey everyone, welcome to another one of these little fun testing live stream things, getting my feet wet again and all that fun stuff as I try to get more into the habit of doing live art streams. Uh, Air quality here in Houston has been super bad. I don't know if it's hit the national news about the big chemical fire that we've had in the area, but all that junk is in the air as well as the pollen. And I've been sneezy and sniffy, and so I apologize if you guys end up hearing me just kind of hacking and sneezing a lot. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to load up a fresh page here before we actually get started on working on the page of Transiltown that we actually want to be doing work on, because we're going to do a little sketchy to kind of warm up here. Again, for now, these warm-up sketches are probably just going to be very non-committal, just kind of fun, quick things to get into just thinking about drawing, thinking about art and all that good kind of stuff. Just getting loose and having a bit of fun before we get down to all of the work. But of course, the work that we do here is fun. I'm not going to insinuate that it's not. But we're just going to warm up a bit. I want to do just kind of a bit of a fun pose here today. Just kind of trying to figure out how I want to exaggerate portions of this. I kind of want to have this person lean in a bit, like so. Concern myself a bit about where some of the anatomy is as we flesh this out a little bit more. Kind of bring the leg in there a bit. But I'm not going to try to spend too much time on this. We're just going to be very quick, have a bit of fun with it. I might do maybe a 10, maybe a 5-minute sketch here. I want something that feels kind of fun, bit of energy to it. Adjust the size of this eraser. It's a bit big. Okay. I'm going to actually lean that shoulder in a bit like so. And if you, maybe I'll share my sketchbook on a stream or something, or maybe I'll do, I've got a webcam, which is actually how I'm recording my audio. So audio is probably not the best, but I've got a little webcam, and I might actually do some warm-up sketches in the future in my sketchbook. Maybe show some of the things that are in there, because my sketches and my sketchbooks are pretty much just like what you kind of see here. I just do some poses just to kind of warm up, or just for a little funsies. And we're just gonna figure out where all the bits of anatomy that we care about are. I feel like maybe her arm. And you see, the fact that I'm so quiet here and thinking a lot is the reason why I don't like to do my rough layouts. Well, I'm probably never going to do any of my rough layout kind of stuff over a live stream, because I'll start focusing and just get quiet. But who knows? That could be an interesting kind of thing to do, and maybe I'll just put on some music I won't get in trouble for over that kind of thing. And one of the fun parts about working digitally is my friend the lasso tool, where I can kind of do. Right, put you about right there. And as always, if you're here watching things, feel free to drop a comment. I do try to look at those occasionally and respond to any kind of questions or any kind of thing that's going on in the chat. Now I feel like I'm spending a bit too much time here. I'm gonna start getting bored. It's bad when Isaiah gets bored because then he just doesn't want to work on the thing anymore. But I kind of feel like I want to do a little bit more with this warm-up sketch before I start doing the work that we should be working on today. And on the docket today is just going to be finishing up, or attempting to finish up, what we were working on Transaltown yesterday. I want to do like a little ear right here. And I like smiles, so she's going to be smiling. Put her nose about right here, like so. We're just going to have a close smile. And some fun lips. And we'll play around with the cheeks, make them nice and round for the smile. We're going to maybe taper off that chin a bit like so. Thinking about the expression here. It's kind of, yeah, that looks a little fun. What kind of stuff do I want to do with the hair? We're just going to draw some shapes here first, and then maybe I'll decide. I want the ear. I really want the ear in this. So whatever we end up doing, the hair is going to tuck behind the ear. Let's think about these eyes a little bit. Let's clean up some stuff there. We'll have some hair go this way. We'll do something kind of curly. We've got some curly stuff going on here. So, ba 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 ba. I think I want to give her a little bit of a longer face, like so. Oops, didn't want to use the eraser there. Hey Meredith, how are you today? And more stuff with the hair. I think it'd be fun if some of the hair comes down here. And this hair's going to go back there. I don't know. We're having a little bit of fun here. There we go. All right, what we have here is looking kind of fun, but I do think I've invested the amount of time that I'm going to put into this before we start getting to the real stuff to do. But I do like this. I may play around with putting some kind of sort of fun outfit on her. So we're going to save this one. And maybe come back to this with our next warm-up. Let's make a nice little folder to put that in somewhere. We have a sketches folder. Sketches, I'm just going to name this today's date. And we'll open this one up tomorrow, and or yeah, I'm probably gonna work tomorrow on some things. So yeah, we'll open this one up the next time we get a live stream going, and I don't know, have some more fun with her and see what else we want to do with that picture. But we're gonna move on to working on some Transaltown today. Like I was saying, I think my plan for tonight is actually going to be to go ahead and finish this. Sipping on my coffee right there. This might not take so long that I actually need a big old glass of coffee, but you know, it's better safe than sorry. So let's start off, like I was explaining yesterday, when I first start working on a page, I kind of like to start with something, with a panel that can be a little simple, and while I'm still kind of warming up. So we're going to start here on panel 2 with Norman here. Norman is full of all kinds of simple round shapes that makes him fun to draw. He's a lot like Biggles, where when I get my brush ready there. I don't have to do much more work with him than what I lay out in my roughs, and he's pretty much ready to get penciled pretty much then and there, which is always fun because it's like I can work faster and get this done faster. I don't like that shape to overlap like that, so we're actually going to cut it off about right there, and boom, nice round shapes. Norman, in both his forms, it's a really fun round character to draw. Hey there, Marahum. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. I'm glad that you were able to come and join us. And I certainly hope that you guys don't mind the clickety-clack of my keyboard when I'm doing my shortcuts and stuff like that. I may, in the future, probably get a camera that doesn't catch all of that, or not a camera, rather, yeah, an actual microphone, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm recording the audio with my webcam, and I know when I've come back to listen to this, we get the clickety click 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 clack. And when I was listening, I was kind of like, I really hope that doesn't annoy anybody. Let's zoom out a bit, make sure we're getting kind of the full picture here. I think maybe I may have used too thick of a line for his outline, but we'll be fine with that. I think it's all good. There we go. Reduce that brush size now and play around with this zipper. There we go. All right. Norman, I don't know if I'm going to keep this hooded form for Norman in the future. After this arc, he may be unhooded after this story of Transaltown is all over with. But I am going to miss this design because one of the fun things about it is that he really only has his eyes to express with. There's no face to draw, really, and so I've got to use the eyes to really sell his emotions, and of course his body language too. That's also really important. And I find characters where I don't get all of the tools to kind of express with uh, are a fun kind of challenge. I was talking yesterday about Boneless Bread from Help Wanted when I was working on that, and how he doesn't have any hands. Uh, he's just a spread with a face and some legs, and it was really fun figuring out how to express with him and really pushing facial expressions. And then we have the opposite of that here with Norman, who doesn't have a whole lot of facial expressions to play around with. And so it's always really fun trying to sell that. But as you can see here, he is going to start going without his hood for the rest of the story arc after this page. But I'm not 100% sure if in the future, if I'm going to be ditching the hooded design completely or not. I guess that's a decision that I'll be able to make later. I just was not liking the line thickness there, so just kind of drew it over again and again a few times there. I'm going to be cognizant about this cloud that overlaps the giant uh, dodgeball here, because I find myself uh, too frequently drawing things that I'm just going to erase later. So I should try to be a little bit more efficient with my time. We're going to go back and do the details in that shape later. I want to make sure we do some other things here. And I forgot to put that round shape back there in a different layer. One of those things that happens when I'm talking while I'm drawing is I forget to make some of my layers. So I just moved that shape to its own layer, which is going to make it easier when I start doing this cloud shape here. And I just made a new layer for that too, so that I don't accidentally draw all over Norman here. I can easily just kind of erase things or get rid of things that I don't want. Don't have to be committed to lines that overlap shapes that I've decided are already done. These clouds are almost, oops, always really fun to draw. It's just these weird wispy clouds that exist here in this weird dimension that the characters are going to be around in for quite a while, probably long enough for me to get really annoyed with the background. Part of the fun part of the stories that I write for Trantaltown is that I get to decide what environments I'm going to be in, and so I get to craft new environments every single time. But the story arcs always end up kind of completely taking place in some of these settings, and then after a while, at first I'm super hyped about the environment that I'm drawing, and then some 50 pages later, I'm like, oh my god, can I draw something new now? Um, I don't know. I think maybe the next challenge I'll make for myself when I start drafting up another Transaltown story is to write something that takes us to a bunch of different locations, just so that I won't have that experience next time of like, I'm tired of this world. Let's draw something new. Um, let's see here. That shape's wrong. That's the shape we want. Boom, 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 boom. This is a bit of a repetitive action just to give this giant dodgeball in the background a bit of its own texture to kind of break it up from things. And also sell that it is a dodgeball. Dodgeballs have this kind of pattern on it. Let's see. Boom, 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 bam. Boom, 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 bam, boom, 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 bam. All right. Getting kind of happy with that. And the creeper zone kind of has some mist in it. I'm going to go ahead and collapse these two background layers I have together. There we go. Because I'm happy with what's going on there. And now for the mist. Getting my brush ready for that. I like to use this kind of this pen brush pen kind of tool that I'm using here, and Manga Studio EX4. I mentioned yesterday that I am going to try to transition completely to Clip Studio. I was thinking about using the project you'll start seeing me working on soon, which is a contract project, to start learning that program for making comics. But then the more I started thinking about it, it's like, yeah, but that thing has a dip line, and so it kind of needs to go out, and I don't need to waste a whole lot of time learning a new program. So I think I'm actually going to start working on transitioning into Clip Studio while working on Transaltown, probably after I get this freelance gig out of the way. Um, and you know, for any of my readers out there, I'm sorry that might actually mean a slowdown in pace of Transaltown, but I do think that that program is pretty efficient. So overall, you know, once I go through the growing pains, I am going to miss some of my very fun perspective tools, which are or what I picked up Manga Studio 4 for was the robust um, tools for that. So now that I've done this mist, shape, I am gonna just kind of start checking a few areas here with my wand tool because the background of the creeper zone does get tones in it, like some nice little 50% gray tones. I normally don't do a whole lot of work with tones because I don't like doing things that are tedious and will make me get bored very quickly. And tones are one of those things, and it's so funny because I actually I'll get really enamored with like manga art that uses like a whole lot of tones, like Horikoshi of My Hero Academia does some incredible stuff with tones, and I'll look at it and I'll be like, man, I should start doing stuff with tones myself, and then I'll start working with tones. It's like, oh yeah, this sucks. It takes so long, and I just kind of I like to be snappy and quick and just get my pages out and move on to another drawing. I don't know. That's uh, I like comics because I get to draw a bunch of different pictures because Isaiah gets way too bored with things, which is why you haven't seen me make a whole bunch of illustrations for a very long time. Those of you that have known me or have followed me for a long time on the convention scene and stuff like that will remember that I used to do a ton of fan art stuff for conventions, and I never really liked doing that because once again I prefer to be working on comics. Um, but yeah, I also just never had the patience for that too. And I'd always just be working on some thing and just be like, man, when is this gonna be over with? Which is why I mostly, when I do that kind of stuff now, it's like in sketch cards because I get to have all the fun that I like to have and then just be done with it. Um, I don't know if that makes me a lazy artist, probably, but it's I am what I am. All right, so we've moved on to the last panel. Now that we've kind of warmed ourselves up with a nice simple panel, and kind of feeling like the width that I'm using on this brush isn't going to make me happy in the future. I'm going to pull out real quick to kind of look at this. I don't know, it might work because I'm going to make some of the lines in the background a little thinner. And I make some, no, I guess we'll make that decision when we get there. Because this is a size down from what I was doing in the first panel, and I felt that that size may have been too thick, and I definitely don't want to do anything I feel is thick here on something that needs more detail. That's the wrong shape for this. There we go. So those of you hanging out in the chat there, is there anything you'd like to hear me talk about? Maybe like some character design stuff, or I don't know, whatever you feel might be fun. I can talk about my day. My day has just been sitting around at my day job and punching numbers. And I guess that can lead me to a fun, not so fun subject to talk about, which is carpal tunnel syndrome. It is not any fun at all. Because I do data entry for my day job, so I'm on a keyboard and a computer screen all day long, and I try to be very well aware of my posture at work and the posture when I'm sitting here drawing too, because that's the main thing that gets me when I start getting some hand cramps and pains. And for a while, there was a good year where it was very hard for me to do any work. Um, and even now, I used to be able to like sit around and make comics for like I would sit down for like 4 hours, uh, and work on nothing but comics and art and drawing. And now it's a little harder for me to do that. My stamina for my wrist has gotten a lot better since it was hurting a lot when I was working on the Funktastic, uh, which was just last year. Uh, but that kind of stuff happens a lot less now that I've moved back to working on comics digitally, which is a bit of a shame. I would like to do more comics traditionally because I think it's really fun. I like I like my T squares and my rulers and stuff like that. That's always fun to play around with for perspective. I also just really like the feeling, the glide of a pencil across a page, and it is a very different kind of world to be working in because here in the digital world, things are a lot safer. I can work in layers. Um, I can change the opacity of things so that I can see things better. If I feel like I don't like the size of something, I resize it. If I feel like I want to make, if I want to move a whole thing like a head, I can just go like boom. I have to be a whole lot more deliberate when I'm drawing traditionally, which is not an issue. Sometimes I'll find myself like doing a Control Z motion, uh, which is funny. It's just a funny thing that kind of happens. It's like, oh yeah, I'm not at a keyboard right now. Why am I reaching for that when I should just be reaching for an eraser? Let's see here. When I'm doing my inks, I like to concern myself with overlapping shapes. And that's kind of how I decide where I'm going to move to next. I'm just thickening out the lines there a bit. But yeah. So after I get a few lines on the page, I'll be like, okay, what shapes are over and underneath what? And I'll start trying to work in that kind of direction. I feel like I'm really, really close to the things that are on this page. I'm zoomed in really far. And it's yeah, that hand right there is super tiny. And I'm probably going to spend more time on it than I should. But let's do it. There we go. Okay. Stick over here. Now I've gone silent. All you hear is the click clickety clack, click clack of my keyboard. Let's see. There we go. I don't know why I put these two little rectangular shapes on her boots. Well, I know why, because I just felt like, oh, that's a simple shape. It's kind of boring to draw. Let's just add one little extra thing. Uh, doesn't really change the shape much, but it gives me some extra line to have, which I think makes it look a little better. Right now, I'm trying to figure out what I want to take care of next. So she's on this false ground, this curvy kind of false ground that exists in this zone, but also her weapon is kind of overlapping an area of it, and so I'm just figuring out where I want to go to next, and making a layer, because we are going to do the false ground first, I think is where I want to move to, and since that's going to be behind some things, we're going to want to put it someplace that's going to be nice and easy to erase from. And I'm just going to set up a new ruler layer too. This is panel 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 7. Yeah, all right, I named it correctly. And I'm going to do a symmetric or a concentric circle, which always generates here in the middle of the page. I gotta go grab it. So what I ended up deciding to do is making a background layer here, and since I have to use, I'm going to use my concentric circle tool for this groundish kind of thing down there. I'm going to go ahead and do the gigantic dodgeball in the background first, because that's a nice round shape, and I want to do it while my concentric circle is still, you know, a perfect circle shape before I go around playing with it and changing it. Okay, and I never really concerned myself with too many of the exact shapes of some of the lines that I'm going to be using some sort of guide for when I'm doing my very, very rough pencils. Because I'll just, you know, figure that out once I get the tool out. But I do try to kind of line a few things up to what existed on my sketch. And that would be, right there, why we put that on its own layer, so that we could just easily cut through Veronica's hand there and then just erase that later. Turn off that lock, and we're just going to make the hand just a little bit thicker here, in line with Alright, and making sure I got the right layer selected there. So Veronica has this mace weapon. In the past, I used to kind of concern myself a lot with using guides, rulers, and that kind of thing for shapes like this, but I feel sometimes that when I do that, things that I feel sometimes when I do that with an object like a character's weapon or something like that, it tends to feel sterile, like lacking the ability to move, I guess. I guess the best comparison I can make is like when you watch a cartoon and you know something in a scene is going to move because it's colored differently, because you know it's using the cell shading instead of like the painted background kind of colors. I feel like it's the opposite when I do something like, I don't know, a gun or a weapon or something like that, and I stay very, very concerned with using concentric lines and stuff like that. It feels like it doesn't belong in the scene, or it's unnatural, or it's not supposed to move. And here's a dumb thing I just did. I did a lot of those lines on my background layer, because this is what happens when Isaiah talks and does art at the same time. He does things like working on the wrong layer. But the more I do this, I'm sure the more that kind of thing won't happen, I hope. And certainly hope that I catch it before it becomes an issue, like I just did there, because it's really not, these overlapping shapes aren't that big of a deal. But if I was doing something else later and just ruined everything that I worked on, I'd be like, oh my god, Isaiah, what's wrong with you? What'd you do? Why'd you do that? So, that's the background. There we go. So yeah, I just started deciding that at least some shapes, I will kind of go about this route, even if it means that the the actual perspective of things is kind of wonky. I kind of feel like it feels more fluid, more alive, at least right now. And I may change that. As an artist, you're always growing, and there may be things that I'm making decisions on right now that, just a year from now, I'll be like, man, you really shouldn't have done that way, Isaiah. Why'd you do that? Hopefully, this won't be one of those things. Now, for the straightness of this weapon, I do still use paths and guides, or for like simple curves and that kind of stuff. This line still isn't thick enough. Let's look at it. Okay, yeah, we can commit to that. I am fine with that. Like so. Boom. Put a bit of texture here to show off the roundness of this. There we go. Space and shape and stuff like that in this area is kind of weird. On purpose, I guess, but kind of not. We're rolling with it though. That's actually her other boot. Right? Yeah, that's her other boot here. So we're gonna add that shape that's on the boot there, just so later I know what I'm actually looking at here. There we go. Bam, bam. Okay, and we'll step away and take a look at it from far, see if there's anything I want to touch off and fix, and before I move on deeper into the picture. Kind of not really happy with some of the things that are going on over here. So, all that zooming in and zooming out, like I talked about yesterday, is why I'm not doing time lapses right now, because that kind of stuff will look really weird in a time lapse. Okay, let's see. I'm kind of starting to dig that now. I do want to give this weird shape a little bit of depth, so I think what I'm going to do is go back to my guides layer. We're going to make a radial curve path. Make something that kind of lines up to that. Okay, that looks good. What happens when I start to do this kind of thing? Let's change our brush a bit. that's looking okay. I'm just going to do a little shadow kind of thing underneath her. And start hatching that a bit to give. I think especially here in the creeper zone area the Transitown kids are in right now, I think shadows and stuff like that are going to be, like drop shadows are going to be pretty important to helping convey the space, because space is just so wonky and weird here. Yeah, okay, that's looking fine. And let's turn those pencils back on. I'm going to make some adjustments to my brush here. And we're going to work on this path up here. So I want to make another background layer. And I'm pretty happy with what's down there, so I'm not going to make a new tool. And I'm going to draw some lines, some very non-committal lines. Just kind of test out where I'm going to put this vanishing point. That's going to extend pretty far. I could use a few more points, but I really don't care so much about conforming myself exactly to the shape that I have up here. I think a lot of this is fine. Yeah, we're going to work with that. Okay, and start putting some of the shapes in here that make up the way that these strange paths work. Down here on the old background layer. And see, I'm already mad at myself because I have used this concentric circle tool down here, and I have not set up kind of the textured pattern for the giant dodgeball kind of thing. So we're just gonna get rid of that, and we're just gonna make another concentric circle. We don't need this one. It certainly isn't going to be easy to set that up to be nice and concentric again. So a new, but that's on the wrong layer actually. Make sure, delete. Let's go down here to our paths layer and our rulers. There we go. Brand new concentric circle on the correct layer. Now I want to make sure I'm drawing on the right layer. I see we have a few new folks watching. I just want to make sure that I say hello to all of you. Thank you for showing up here. Ew, that line was way too thick. Do we like that? We like this. And as always, we're going to make, yeah, we're fine with that. You know, if you have anything that you want to say in the chat, feel free to say it. It will certainly keep me from just being mumbly and talking about the same art subjects over and over again. Okay, let's see. Yeah, this panel is starting to look pretty fine. And before I start doing the pattern for the giant dodgeball here, I'm going to save that for kind of later. We're going to start working on that little wispy kind of cloud things. And also, you know, her purse here that's sitting here in the foreground that I have not touched, and I should draw that because, you know, that was a pretty important plot point of the last page, and how she got separated from Norman up there. It was Biggles threw her purse away and she went after it, so we don't want to forget it. Characters with accessories. Sometimes I'll forget to draw that. I've caught myself several times with Veronica forgetting to draw her purse. And yeah, she's got like this magical purse thing where all of her weapons and anything, she carries everything. And I had a whole lot of fun drawing that one of the previous pages where she pulls out that giant weapon of hers from her purse. So it's a pretty important item to her, and sometimes I'll draw her, and right before the page, or right before I schedule the page for release, I'll be like, oh crap, I forgot her purse in that scene, and I have to go back and draw it. And it's because of things like that that I've started making some rules to myself for some of my character designs. Alicia's brothers, Victor and man, I'm drawing a blank on the name of Alicia's other brother. It's Victor and man, I named him after a musician, Lenny. Victor and Lenny, and actually all of Alicia's family are named after musicians. Alicia, of course, named after Alicia Keys. Victor's named after Victor Wooten. Lenny's named after Lenny Kravitz, and so on. With the exception of her grandfather, who's JJ. He's just JJ. But yeah, her two brothers actually started off with gloves on their design, and I would forget to draw those gloves so frequently. So now when I design characters, I'm like, no gloves. Gloves are never a thing that I'm gonna put on characters anymore, because I don't want to sit around forgetting those. And other accessories like that, like Death. I think in my original designs I was going to give her earrings that were kind of that were shaped after a scythe, and then I would just, in my sketches, I would constantly forget to draw those, and so I was like, okay, those earrings are going to go, because I mean, if I'm never going to draw them, then they may as well just not be there. But Veronica's purse is a very necessary part of how she deals with the world. And so, but all of that is on my background layer. You see, guys, I did it again. Look at that. Watch that. So many things here on the wrong layer. But it's fine. It's not done in a way that's going to mess anything up. It's just done in a way that's going to annoy Isaiah a lot. Quite a bit later on. If I were like coloring this page or something, I would probably be very bothered by that, because I would, but I'm not. I'm cool. It's just fine, and I'm not annoyed. Can you tell that I'm not annoyed? Am I selling that hard enough? I'm certainly still hovering over these layers. Just very upset at myself about that. As I make a new background layer so I can focus on these clouds, I'm actually going to go ahead and collapse those other layers together. Those other layers are all together now, even though some of my foreground elements are on them. But we're gonna move on. We're not gonna fix that. It's not necessary. Make sure I'm doing this right. I don't want to keep making. I really don't want to keep making that mistake. Oh, yeah, David. I guess TA has gotten better. TA, you guys. Well, no, I'm not going to talk too much about like my day job and where I work exactly. So we'll just leave it at the acronym TA. But yeah, it's I mean it's been a thing, and there have been things there that have been causing me headaches, but this week has been pretty easy, and all the people there are chill. David used to work there with me. Most of the people that are all gone and moved on to new places in life. Um, but yeah, TA's cool. As far as how many layers I normally work with, so I like to actually keep it pretty concise. Um, Normally, I'll do a layer for foreground elements and a layer for background elements, and keep it at that. But then when I start to get things like what's going on with this page right here, so in the foreground we have Veronica, but there's also this bit of the trippy, weird creeper zone groundish kind of thing that she's sitting on. And so when I draw that, I treat it like I treat the background, because I want to draw it in a way where I can kind of draw through things and not worry about overlapping the art that's there, so I can easily erase it. So that will be its own layer now. So now the foreground gets separated into two layers and just instead of just one layer. And then here in the background, because I have this shape back here, the giant dodgeball kind of thing, and there's clouds that go over it. It kind of has a gravitational pull, I guess, and the clouds will kind of taper into its shape. I want the freedom to kind of draw these clouds as I want to, and then easily kind of go back and get rid of the shape down there. So now this background has it's got a layer for that. It's got a layer for the path that Norman and Biggles were on. So now I've just made three paths here and then two paths here. So now what I usually do in um, two layers, I'm now doing in five. But when I do things like that, though, I do try to keep it nice and clean by collapsing layers that I'm not using anymore. Um, so that I just don't have this big old jumble of layers that when I'm coming back later, I'm like, I don't understand what's going on here. I like to be able to, if I need to change things later, if I have to come back to a page, I don't know, several months later, I'm not going to remember intimately everything that was doing there and everything that I set up. So I like to kind of have in my mind just know that, like, yeah, like I was going to only work on two layers here. And so by the time I'm done with this, I'm going to collapse it all into two different layers. Um, so that five is going to go down to two, and I'll leave it at two, just in case I have to do something with this in the future, or I want to do something with this in the future. Because I do want to, like, Trench Town's a black and white comic, but maybe one day, I don't know, some project down the line is going to turn it into a colored comic. And so having those layers ready for that um, will make my life easier in a hypothetical future. Uh, okay. If all of that makes sense. And now, you see, here we go again. I was talking, and then I did the rest of the cloud on the wrong layer, but it's fine. It's not in an area where it's gonna break anything. It's gonna make me. It's gonna be one of those things that I remember late at night. I'm just gonna pop up out of my bed and just be like, "You put it on the wrong layer, Isaiah." Even though it's all done now and you don't need to worry about it and it's fixed, and but you did a dumb, and now you're going to think about it before you go to sleep. Have fun sleeping. No, those kinds of things never happen. It's always some embarrassing thing that you did in childhood, right? Layers aren't going to keep me up at night. Did I do this on the? Oh no, I actually did this on the wrong layer this time. So it's not going to be as easy and clean to get rid of these lines. And I was thinking about getting rid of these lines altogether because I just didn't like. I thought they were too close together. But now, okay, so now you get to see what happens when Isaiah actually messes up with layers. And now I have to be super careful about how I erase all this stuff. There we go. Again, we're going to get up in here. I guess now that I've made that mistake, I'm just going to live with how these lines are spaced out. That's probably a detail I didn't need to waste time on right there, but I did anyways. Okay, so let's turn off our pencil layer and just kind of look at things real quick. And one thing that is coming to mind here. Thank you. I love drawing the fluffy smoke too. First, when I was drawing this creeper zone, these clouds looked more like how I normally draw clouds. And then I just started at some point giving them this fun, very fluffy motion, which I think helps make this area look more unreal. And it's also fun. It's also fun to draw. Very fun to draw. Okay, so we're just making these lines on Veronica a little thicker, so she pops out from the background a bit more. Her boots here are actually going to get filled in black. So I actually should not care about how thick the lines are going to be, but that's also one of those decisions that I make because, first of all, I really like looking at my line work and it being clean, but also if I decide to color pages of Transit Town in the future, not treating my black areas like they're going to be locked in as a tone black, because her shirt here is actually supposed to be a green color whenever she's colored. So if I decide to color this page in the future, I can actually color that. Okay, so I think we're looking good here. We're going to want to put the mist and fog of the creeper zone here, and also the hatching, which we'll do last. And I'm going to make sure I go to the right layer for that. We're going to go ahead and collapse these two background layers real quick. So, boom. Oh no. Okay. Yeah, so now all of that and this are on the same layer. And we're going to make another background layer to start working on the mist. It's going to be here. There's also a bit of foreground mist from where Biggles and Norman vanished from. So let's go ahead and do that first. I'm going to use some thicker lines for this mist than I would use for the background mist, so that it pops a little bit more and also will feel different from the normal mist that's here. And these kinds of shapes are very fun to draw. Just these non-committed kind of hash shapes that I can just kind of float around with and have fun with. And once again, I don't want to leave a whole lot of space in between this, so that when I go in to set the gray tones for the creeper zone, I won't have to worry about it creeping into the mist, because I want the mist to be white when the gray zones. I don't want it to be gray when I put down the gray tones here. So, but first we're just gonna kind of be loose and sketchy with it. Let's kind of mark where it's gonna be, and then we'll go make sure that there's not big joints in there. Some more fine lines like so. It's looking okay, and I'm going to turn off the blue pencils. We're going to give it a test. Yeah, so none of what I just did with my lasso tool gets inside of the mist there. So I know when I do my gray tones later, I can just poof and put in the gray and just be happy and done with it. Alright, and that was on my foreground layer, so let's go back to my second background layer. And look at my pencils. So I put I want some smoke to be here. I'm sorry, not the smoke, the mist. It's going to kind of flow behind, maybe go down here. So I don't want the shapes to end up being too busy and lose the things that we're supposed to focus on. So I'm kind of thinking about the flow there. So I'm just going to have the mist kind of dip here. It would feel good if it kind of came around here, but I think it'll just make this area look a little sloppy and messy and not very clean. And then we're going to put some, no, I'm not going to put any up here, because I am going to put some focus lines here to kind of give some emphasis on Norman and Biggles disappearing up there. So I don't want to draw away from that. So I think the amount of mist that we put into this scene is all we're really going to do so that we maintain our little balance here for later on in the page. Let's see if there are some little faraway background clouds I do to kind of give the space in the creeper zone a little bit more body. And also it helps me visualize when I'm coming in later to do my tones, where the tones go. So anywhere where we see these kind of faraway clouds and misty shapes are going to be gray in the future. Okay, that's going to be where some of the white mist ends up being. Actually, it should, because I don't want to take it away from the mace shape here, so we'll go ahead and mark this as some place that's going to be gray later. And come back up here. Okay, that's starting to look pretty fine. We don't want to forget here on the ball shape here. Change my brush a bit. Up to my concentric circle. Okay, and now we're going to do some of the hatching shapes for the giant dodgeball. I really don't like that shape right there. We'll just do that and do that. Same thing going on over here. Yeah, like I feel like these are just spaced too close to each other. Now that particular line is, oh god, okay. You go like that, you go like that. Okay, we're good. I'm gonna send here. So you guys are two. Then same thing here. We're just gonna get rid of that one altogether. I feel the same way about like all this. We're gonna get rid of this line. And then we're just gonna go like so. Okay, am I happy with this? I think I'm happy with this. Let's view this without the guide there, so it's nice and clean, and think on it a bit. Yeah, so we just merged our background layers together, so we're back to 2 layers, and this page is just about done. We've got 2 more panels to do. We're going to go ahead and do, let's take a look at the pencils. So, oh, yeah, panel 4 here is actually going to contain a couple of flashback panels that I'm just going to like pull out their page and put in here, and I'll probably end up doing that off camera because I don't want you guys looking at the same image while I go back and find the pages and pull them out and put them there. So we're going to save this panel here for last. We'll do the artwork for it last, and so we'll come back over here to panel number 6 and work on that. Oh wait, I just forgot. There's one more thing that we need to put on panel 7, and I will make an extra layer for this, so there will be 3 layers here, and it's going to be an effect layer, and it's just going to be a simple effect. It's just going to be the focus lines to kind of emphasize where Norman and Biggles are disappearing from. There it goes, and we're going to put it on top, and we're going to come back down here to my guide layer and make a new guide, radial line guide, right here. Grab it. There we go. We'll put it about right there, right there, and make some adjustments to my brush. And we'll do some nice thick lines. That good. Pull a bit of focus. There we go. Yeah, something that looks very different from the lines here. And what I'll end up doing later in another program before the page comes out is I actually like to add a white stroke to certain effects and to the outline of my speech bubbles, and so I will add that to these lines right here so that they kind of pop out a little bit more from the page, especially when they go over the areas that are supposed to be gray. So that's done. We can go ahead and work on panel number 6. And we're going to go for, let's start off this guide. We don't need those guides anymore. There we go. We're going to go for the same kind of effect that we used here for this mist, and that's mist will show up anytime Norman or Biggles are teleporting within the creeper zone, because the 2 of them are creepers themselves, and so unlike, I was going to say humans, but in this arc we've got a couple of other type of characters trapped here in the creeper zone. Timmy, who's a vampire, and we've got a couple of demon characters in here. So the creepers can move in here normally. They're kind of my take on the monster in your closet, or the monster under your bed, or the kind of Monster Inc. monster that the kind of boogeyman. Actually, not the boogeyman, but like the monster you associate with being underneath things and creeping in things. And my whole concept for them is that they can kind of exist in between space, and when they're in that space, they're able to move around freely. And so I manifested that through the idea of the creeper zone, which is what it's pocket dimension that they kind of go into when they're in between space. And so Norman here has brought his friends in here so they can rescue some of the characters that got lost here. So him and Biggles are able to freely move throughout here. And I figured that since the zone has a lot of mist and clouds and stuff like that, anytime they disappear, in this zone, I'll do, like, I'll cover them up. I'll start covering them up with mist, and then the mist will go away, and then they'll be gone. Or anytime I want to show off that they are quickly moving in between space, I'll have this mist show up. So I guess it's kind of like the Banff kind of thing, without being a Banff. You gotta. The fun thing about comics is that you have to find ways to displace or display things that take place in between time. And so, Nightcrawler has his Banff because he needs some sort of effect to show the audience that he's disappeared. So it's not just like he's in one panel and then he's not in a panel. That doesn't necessarily sell the idea of disappearing. But when that cloud of smoke shows up and the sound effect is there, Nightcrawler has disappeared. And so this kind of thick, misty effect is kind of my version of that. It's will show up either before or while they're going to disappear, or after they've disappeared. Is a setup there, especially since Isaiah doesn't do a whole lot with sound effects, and I really should incorporate sound effects into my comics more. And I've played with it a bit, and then I forget to do it because once I get down, the lettering is always the last thing I do, and it's like on a Sunday before the pages come out on Monday, and I don't want to work on things anymore. It's like I'm done with the artwork, and let me do lettering, and then let me go to bed, kind of thing. And I really shouldn't let it. I shouldn't let it be that way. Lettering is part of comics, and Isaiah needs to be more considerate about his lettering and do more fun things with lettering, and maybe buy some awesome fonts because I don't have any good fonts, and maybe that's why I don't put a whole lot of emphasis on lettering. I should buy some cool fonts. I did get a really good lettering font for when I was helping with the lettering for Fright School High School. And I was thinking about, when I came back here to start working on Transyltown again, using that font, but because I've been doing this entire kind of episode of things on with Comic Sans, I'm like, oh no, I'm not using Comic Sans anymore. I stopped using that a while ago. I'm using Comics Nouveau, I think is what I'm using. Let me open up one of my layers here with the text and figure out what it is I'm using. It's it's Comics Nouveau, or New, or however I pronounce that. And it's nice, but I think the one that I downloaded when the one that Matt wanted to use for Fright School High School is better. And I'm going to switch to that after this story arc of Transyltown is done. It's going to be my go-to standard lettering font. But I need to get some cooler things for sound effects. I've gotten a few free ones in the past, but I need to splurge and spend some money on really cool things. And so if you want to help me do that, I have a Patreon. Here's the obligatory Patreon plug, and also the obligatory YouTube like, comment, and subscribe plug that I need to get in the habit of saying, I suppose. But this is an unlisted one, so I guess it's not that big of a deal. But I'm gonna have to be the annoying YouTube guy who tells you guys to like, comment, and subscribe every video from now on. So I should get used to that. And so there, I have Patreon. There's a link in the doobly-doo. And that will help me buy fonts. and that'll make me letter better. I don't know if it'll make me letter better, but it'll give me better options for lettering. All right, we're just about done with Norman's Banff-like effect. And we'll start actually drawing Norman himself in a bit once we get all of this done. Thank you, Dave. need to get some of those cool sound effect type things that I see on other people's live streams for like when people take actions and stuff like that. So like everyone in the chat, the whole like 3 of you who are there, thank you, I love you, can hear it when someone does something like subscribes or something like that, which is always helpful. Okay, so we've got all of that set up. I want to get a good idea of how clean that's looking, so I'm just going to take away the pencils real quick. And stretch a bit, because we've been here in this one spot, and we want to stretch out our arms and our back and our fingers, so we don't have to take a month off because Isaiah is suffering from carpal tunnel pains. He never wants to be in that situation again. So little stretch break. I should have a little button that plays a montage whenever I take a stretch break, or like when I go to grab coffee or something like that, like little jingle that plays. Okay, stretching is done. Okay, and once again, first thing I concern myself with are overlapping shapes when I start inking. And so I feel like this is the most forward shape. And so I'm going to start with that. Norman is so fun to draw when he's in his hoodie design. I've not drawn any of him without of what's going to be his normal design, really. I think it's not even on the cover of this issue. So I haven't drawn it at all. I don't know how fun or easy that's going to be once we get to the point where he starts looking the way I think I want him to look more often. But I don't know. I like drawing his hoodie design so much, I kind of don't want to retire it. We'll see how I feel about that. I am going to make sure his face shows more often, because as much as I like the hoodie design face, it is fun and has its own little challenges about it. I like his little Cookie Monster face. And that was definitely, you know, the whole kind of Sesame Street monster vibe is what I wanted to go for both Norman and Biggles. I kind of like the way, I kind of like that kind of monster look. It's Elmo and Cookie Monster-esque, and I always used to really like those the Sesame Street monsters, particularly Cookie Monster. Cookie Monster and Grover. Always really liked Super Grover, the Super Grover sketches when I was a kid. You go figure, you know, the comic book artist guy likes the superhero-esque sketches from Sesame Street and that kind of stuff. I kind of feel like Grover's kind of like an underrated Sesame Street character. I never see anything from Grover in pop culture anymore. You know, it's a lot of Cookie Monster and Elmo. Like, I don't know if Sesame Street. I hope Sesame Street is still around. But is Grover like still a thing? I hope he is. I like Grover. Not as much as Cookie Monster though. Cookie Monster is the coolest, and he's got a really awesome social media page, and he's like the best. He's the best Sesame Street character. I don't know. What are you guys' favorite Sesame Street characters? Grover is in the Muppets now? Traitor. What a traitor. All right, so when I was a kid, I used to get really annoyed whenever Kermit the Frog would show up on Sesame Street, because I would always be like, "You have your own show. What are you doing here? You're cutting into my Cookie Monster and Grover time." Grover can't be over with the Muppets now. The traitor. That's treacherous. Yeah, I do think you might be confusing Grover with Gonzo. All right, let's take a look at things. This is disembodied mouth. I always kind of love when I take off my sketch layer and just look at inks and then just see these floating features. I kind of find that funny sometimes. Get Norman's teeth here. Let's see, starting to look really good here. All right, I want to be very particular about Norman's expression here. Um, when I was sketching this one out, I kind of had to look in the mirror a few times and act out this expression because it's supposed to be this kind of sad, crying, sad, angry at the same time kind of face. Um, and when I was roughing this out, I was having a lot of difficulty pulling off the right expression there, and finally had to look into a mirror and act it out, which is a thing you have to do very often in work like comics and animation. When I was working in animation, I had like a little hand mirror with me at all times, um, especially when I was doing like lip syncing. And I'll frequently, if I'm doing like action poses, um, and I'm having some difficulty figuring it out, and I can't find any reference that's similar to what I want, I'll go to where a mirror is in the house, and I'll start acting out that pose. Um, I've had asked like my roommate or relatives before in the past to like uh, when I'm drawing hands or something like that, and I need uh, I need to draw like a specific grip on something, and I'm having difficulty visualizing that. I'll ask someone to kind of act that out and take a picture of it, because hands can be a little difficult when you're looking for reference for it. There are some poses where I can just kind of look at my own hand and be all right, and then there are some where I can only see my own hands from certain angles. And that's when I'll have to ask someone. It's like, hey, can you hold this? But like, hold it like this. I'm gonna leave his eyes alone for now, and do those last. I talked about that a bit yesterday. Is some facial features I won't work on until later because it can feel kind of finalized to me once a face has all its features, and that's one of those things that will put Isaiah into bored town. Is when I feel like, oh, this picture's done. Like the face is there, so like, why am I still drawing this? So his eyes are gonna stay blank right now until I'm ready to go up there and and say that this panel is done, just to avoid those own little quirks of mine. That would be my quirk if I was like a My Hero Academia character, is a useless clerk where I can't finish drawing things when they have faces. Selfies of this expression exist. I wouldn't even know how to properly characterize it so that I can like Google it. Sad angry face, angry cry face. Yeah, and sometimes when I want to draw an expression, I'll have something in mind that's pretty exact. Because I do sometimes we'll look up faces online for expressions, and I'll be like, that doesn't really capture the look I'm looking for, and so it does still help me a lot to go act it out in the mirror, to so that I'm sure that I'm getting the version of that expression that I'm looking for. Okay, yeah, that's good. Then, we're actually going to make this line a little thicker than what it appears over there. And I'm going to go back to my pencil layer here. Because Norman's pants, they'll kind of zip up into, or they can unzip into shorts, and so they have this little line here. Because when he's going to go later to his non-hoodie form, he's going to be wearing shorts, and so I figured to incorporate that into his original design, there's this tear away or zip away pants into short combo. Okay, so let's pull out a bit and then take a look out the lines. And before we start working on those eyes, I'm going to go ahead and do this detail here that I will often forget to put on Norman and Biggles, and it's just this hatching that's in their eyebrows. Alright, now to get this expression done. And anytime I have these expressions that are kind of exaggerated and hyperbolic, I like to do these kind of sketchy lines for just to kind of put a little stress into the emotion. And also do the same thing with the eyeballs, just like so. And we'll take away that sketch layer, see what it looks like. I'm kind of liking it, but I think Norman needs some tears welling up in his eyes here to kind of sell things a little more. So let's go ahead and draw that. maybe it's kind of flowing out a bit, flying out, all exaggerated like. Like so. Look how fun that looks. Not fun for Norman, but fun for us. Okay, so let's go on to, oh wait, before we move on to the last panel, we have just some kind of zoom in effects to draw, or some focus lines. So let's go ahead and add a layer here for that, and we're going to make a new layer for my rulers. Oops. New ruler layer. That is for panel 6. And new radial lines ruler. Put that about right. I don't want to put it in the center. Right there. That looks good. And let's get that effect going. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and move on to the very last panel on this page, and we'll call it a night once that panel's done. I'm probably going to do things like the filling, the black fills off screen, and as well as the bubbles, because I don't think that'll be as interesting to look at. So panel 4, let's go ahead and get things ready here. New layer. This will be for, first we're going to do the foreground element here. And we're going to want to make a new ruler layer here. So getting all our things set up and named. Always name your layers. Even if you're only working, by yourself on something, you don't want to come back several months down the line and have to edit something and not know what the heck you're looking at. That's never fun. All right, I think that's a fine shape. Let's move it up just a bit. No, I don't like the shape. It's gonna go bye-bye. Delete. Bye. We're gonna use a radial curve for it. No, we're not even gonna use that. Use one of these bad boys here. Look at that. Look how pretty that is. That's exactly what we want. That might be a little too thick of a line. Let's reduce that a bit and draw it like so. There we go. All right, now I'm actually just going to turn that to about 50% and make a new layer. And we don't need to see the guide anymore, so the guide goes bye-bye. Down a little bit more of this coffee, reaching the end of my caffeine storage. So we just kind of want it to power up a little bit more. Okay, so once again, overlapping shapes are what I'm thinking about. Big overlapping shape is this nose, his little carrot nose thing. Change my brush size here. And then his fingers, his stubby fingers. I really like how much Biggles is kind of leaning over in this shot. It's got a very fun pose going on here. But it means that there's a lot of shapes that are overlapping in weird ways. So I'm being conscious about where I'm moving here. So here's his forearm that we're looking at here, but it's actually his face here is going to overlap where the bicep tricep kind of area is. His eyebrows are going to kind of go over things too. So we're thinking about that and not just inking things indiscriminately. And as I was commenting yesterday about the shape of the fingers that I draw for some of the bestial characters, they end up being kind of like, most of the time I draw them in a way where they kind of look single jointed. Until I need to do, like, I don't know, a pose with the hands where I feel like the only way to pull it off is with like all the joints that you would have. But they end up looking kind of stubby, and I like that look for characters like Biggles and for the werewolf characters and anyone with like a kind of beastie design. That's kind of how I like to draw their fingers. Okay, so next shape we're going to do are the eyebrows. Norman's also fun to draw because of his expression. So his face can kind of like move in really fun ways. I'm getting some really fun, cool expressions out of this character. I am actually going to draw his eyes in here right now. And to counterbalance that feeling that I'll get of it's done and I want to be done, I'm not going to finish his mouth until later. But I feel like right now I want to see his eyes, where they are, how they look. I feel is kind of important to what I'm conveying here, so they get drawn in right now. And once again, we kind of pull out to take a look at things. I don't like what's going on with his ear right here, so I am going to rework that a bit. But first, let's get his horn going. So I think I want the ear to do this kind of thing. Take a look at it from a little further away, and yeah, I think I'm liking that. What I'm not really digging is how thick I've made these lines, but we'll work with it. Normally, I won't draw the anatomy on Biggles' arms like so natural. Normally, he gets like these tube arms that will maybe have a bend here before going into his hands, like so. Normally, I won't worry about like where a bicep is located on Biggles, but I do think it's pretty important for this pose here. So it gets there. We get to see it. I want to make sure I don't overlap on his eyebrows in a way that creates a weird tangent. Not digging that shape right there. Overall, not really digging how thick that is on me. Let's see. There we go. Okay, I think I don't want to see this anymore. We're gonna start cleaning that up a bit. And we'll make that the right opacity. There we go. But first, let's go back to our guide layer. This is panel 4. Step 2. Oh, it's snapping me directly to the curve. So adjust things just a little bit. So I'm going to put a little bit of that there. Yeah, I feel much better about that. Get one last little stretch out here before we reach the home stretch. Oops. Let's try that again. There we go. And let's pull out a bit, take a look at it. And let's get that last wing done. All right, let's go ahead and do that mouth. And, oh, there's still the tail here. All right, cool. We are looking good here. And that's all I'll do on screen here tonight. There's still going to be some work for me to do here on the page of like I have to put in the flashback panels that are going to be inserted into here, and I also have to finish off the lettering, and then of course do the black fills and the whiteout. Um, but I'm going to do all of those on camera another time, as well as the tones. I can't forget that there are gray tones in this area. Um, and I might be streaming again tomorrow. I think next week is when I'm going to be starting, officially streaming, an official kind of streaming schedule where I'll open it up to the public and we'll be doing this kind of thing more often, and maybe doing some things where I take some suggestions for warm-up sketches and that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is going to be part of my schedule and the kind of content that I'll be putting up for videos in the future. It's just me working on the projects that I'm working on. Tomorrow I might get another stream going. It won't be Transiltown. It will be the contract project that I'm on. Um, I wanted to start working on that today in front of you guys just to kind of show it off because it's got some fun things that are going to be going on the first page, but it's just not. It's still in a very rough phase, and I don't think I want to. Oh, I got to do the hatching on Biggles' eyebrows here. See, I told you guys it's something I forget. Um, it won't get cut out of his design like other things that I've talked about cutting out of designs because I forget. Because I feel like this helps balance out um, the way that Biggles and Norman kind of look on the page in black and white. But anyways, yeah, that project's not at a point where I would be comfortable talking and working on it at the same time. So once that gets ready for that kind of thing, or at least that page, especially since I'm not used to drawing any of the characters on it right now, so I kind of want to just be able to sit down and work on that. But once it's ready to like ink, like what we were doing here today, I'll make that part of the schedule of things to kind of show off because it's got some fun characters and some fun things going on. And it'll also be a break away from this creeper zone that the Transiltown characters are going to be stuck in for a very long while. So it'll give everyone something new to look at and me something new to draw. So I'll keep you guys posted. Watch me on the social media. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done those kind of things yet. And I'll check you guys out next time. And just, the social media will tell you when the next stream is going to happen. But definitely Monday or so. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, it's been fun. I hope you guys all have a great night. And thanks for joining me here. Take care.